Welcome. You're listening to The Weather Lounge, a podcast by WeatherWorks. Get ready to explore the world of weather and connect with engaging guests, bringing you fun and thought-provoking stories of just how weather shapes our lives, sometimes in ways you've never imagined. So, join us as we unravel the mysteries of the atmosphere. Today's episode starts right now.
Hi there, and thanks for joining us here in the Weather Lounge. I'm meteorologist Brad Miller, and as always, our podcast comes to you from our WeatherWorks headquarters in Hackettstown, New Jersey. And once again, joining me for today's pod is fellow WeatherWorks meteorologist Jen DiOrio. What's going on there, Jen?
Not much, Brad. How's it going? How are you?
Not too bad. You know, it's getting to be that time of the year.
It is. It is indeed. It's a time of the year that I love the fall, but my least favorite thing is in between the seasons of the weather not knowing what it wants to do. So I'm at the time of the year where in the early mornings and the evenings, I'm cold and then I'm sweating during the day, which is not very fun. I don't like that.
No, it was weird because, you know, here in the Northeast, we had like a couple of weeks of coolish weather when the nights were kind of crisp, and now we're getting, you know, here we are heading into the final weekend of September, and it's just kind of got a muggy feel again, very slow moving storm systems, and
more summery again for sure.
yeah. So we'll but we know what's coming here in the next few months. I guess enjoy and hold on to this nice weather while we have it.
Yes, that is true. That is true. Just savoring all of the what's last of summer and through fall for sure.
Yeah, and you know, again, it's late September. Isn't that a song? Late September. Oh, that was no, that was late December back in '62.
Oh,
Sorry.
I thought you were going to talk about Earth, Wind, and Fire, September.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Do you remember the 21st night of September?
That was a long. Yeah, that's a little even past my time, but that's
but
that's
it's
some
a
good
classic.
'70s music. Yeah, it is. It is. But today we're going to talk about the tropics, Jen. We usually do our mid tropical update here, and really it's been pretty quiet up to this point. Now things are pointing into a more active period, so we're gonna have to see how that works out.
Yeah, and with the exception of Erin back in August, the season has honestly kind of been a no-show. So what's really up with that? We have the answer, and when I say we, I mean this guy has the answer, our resident tropical specialist at WeatherWorks, Steve Copertino. Welcome back to the podcast, Steve.
Thank you. Always good to be back.
Yeah, and it's you know, when I called Steve last week, I'm like, Steve, you know, we got to do an update here on this tropic stuff because it's been kind of slow, and really that's been the big headline. Although now we have Gabrielle too. Gabrielle did become a major hurricane just in the last couple of days, but it's safely out into the Atlantic. In fact, I think it's going to bring with it some nasty weather to parts of Europe as we go into this weekend. It'll be extra tropical by then, but you know, again, you know, up to this point, you know, we've had Erin. So let's just do a quick recap. I mean, the elephant in the room, so to speak, Steve, is, you know, why has it been so quiet? Why, and especially at the peak of hurricane season?
Yeah, and I think that's a great question. I don't really think anyone has a real concrete answer at the moment. Something that we've seen over the last month or so since Erin has really been just a lot of sinking air. There really hasn't been a lot of Saharan dust. Wind shear has actually been below average this year. Just for some reason, there's just been a ton of stability. We haven't been able to get deep thunderstorms to develop with these tropical waves that we've had in the central Atlantic, and they've just kind of fallen apart. And we saw that with the storm that became, or the system that became Ferdinand. That was originally supposed to become, you know, a pretty decent hurricane out in the central Atlantic, and really just kind of wound up staying as a tropical storm and not really doing all that much. Gabrielle started off looking really, really rough in the what we call the main development region, south of about 20 north or so. And once it actually lifted out of that area, that's when it really started to develop, get that deep convection, that thunderstorm activity, and went off to the races, became a hurricane, and then peaked as a Category 4 at a very high latitude, which is unusual. And like you said, Brad, it's going to continue probably go through the Azores as a hurricane, which is decently rare, bring some really strong wind gusts to there, and possibly impact portions of Portugal and Spain down the road.
Steve, how rare has this truly been with no name storms through peak at this point?
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's incredibly rare. I remember I was speaking to a few of you during right around the peak. I went through all of the tropical weather outlooks or the little discussions the National Hurricane Center posts about disturbances and things out there that may or may not develop. And I went back through about 2002 or so, and 2025 was the only year that not only didn't have a named storm during that time, but didn't have a mention of like anything that may develop. So that was pretty crazy. And then we went through the actual peak itself without anything developing. And the last time that's actually happened since we really had like reliable recon and records being kept was only 1992. And that was a really, really kind of a dud of a season besides Andrew, of course, um, and finished below average. Obviously, things are starting to pick back up right now. And I don't think we can talk about it a little bit later too. I don't really think we're going to be shut out for the rest of the year after these couple of threats here. But yeah, it's been very, very bizarre. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of studies in the coming years about what exactly made this year so peculiar, we'll use right now.
Yeah, I mean that's a good way to describe it. I think up to this point is peculiar because just looking at some of these stats that you brought up now, we've only had 2 hurricanes, but they both were majors. I mean,
Right.
I mean, we just haven't had a hurricane that only peaks at 1 or 2, which is kind of odd, I guess. But I mean,
Yeah, it's again like there's a bunch of theories out there. I when we had our tropical seminar a couple, or I guess like a month or so ago, we were talking about how the bulk of the warm water this year was focused north of where we typically see hurricanes. So maybe that's where you're going to see a lot of the rising motion or instability this season. So if we do see right now it's called 93L. It'll probably become Umberto in the next couple of days. If we do see that also become a major hurricane as it's heading north out to around Bermuda or so, I mean, you're going to start to get a lot more questions. So, yeah, I mean, last time I think was about 2011 where we had first 2 hurricanes become majors. So it's yeah, it's just really
Yeah.
aren't a lot of words to describe it. It's bizarre.
And like you see, we may become 3 for 3 here with future Umberto. We'll have to kind of see how that evolves. And really, in essence, we're getting out of the Cape Verde season, right? I mean, now our focus is beginning. I mean, it gets harder and harder for those storms to make them way all the way across the Atlantic. I mean, shear starts to increase a little bit, and we start to focus a little bit more around Caribbean and Atlantic and more homegrown, if you will, systems, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's a great point. And I think since we had such a benign Cape Verde season, people still think, you can get these tropical waves to come all the way west and hit land. And, while they can develop out in the central Atlantic with all these troughs or cold fronts dipping down, they're much more likely to recurve out to sea or just not develop at all. But what we have to watch is for them to kind of remain fly under the radar, really. And once they get into the Western Caribbean, the Southwestern Atlantic, the Bahamas, waters are always going to be warm there. Shear's typically going to be lower this time of year. Basically, conditions will be favorable for these to develop. So it's really going to be something to watch. We've seen a lot of systems intensifying quickly as they move towards land the last several years. So that's just something I'm, really going to kind of be keying in on and seeing if, there's any signs of potential mischief down the road. Just since, never want a rapidly intensifying storm heading towards land.
Right. Right. Yeah, and I mean, that's I would say would be my biggest concern is that things are just, aside from the recent Gabrielle, like things are relatively just quiet in general right now. But when something does start to stir up that potential of intensifying quickly and becoming, pretty major is problematic. We still have a lot of prime conditions there with the warm waters and um, things like that. Now, are the waters as warm as they were this time last year?
Last year was just a total crazy anomaly. We're solidly above normal everywhere, but we're not quite as ridiculous as last year was. I mean, at this point, you really don't need to even be above normal when we're talking about the Western Caribbean and even the Gulf still, just because they're pretty much always 28 to 30 degrees Celsius this time of year. I think portions of the Western Caribbean are almost 31 Celsius, which is very, very high. So yeah, I mean, like you were just saying, I just really don't want to have people have this false sense of security right now. I mean, it's kind of the thing that's said every single year, but it really does only take one major storm to change the whole view of a season. So right now, we might kind of laugh and say, "Oh yeah, it was ridiculously quiet," but something bad does happen, we're going to look at it differently.
Right.
Yeah, and take last year, for example. I mean, unfortunately, this is like the anniversary of when we had Helene.
Yep.
H storm,
Yeah.
which is right where we're at with the H storm this year too. I mean, that's the next named storm, and look at what happened with that one. And that wasn't even a real. I mean, it was a hurricane, but the impacts were, more rain driven and floody, of course, with what happened in North Carolina. But I mean, it just I'm worried too because the Gulf is really untouched this year. The Western Caribbean has been untouched. I mean, there's a lot of oceanic heat content there. I mean, I know there was some upwelling from Erin back in August, whatever, but that's probably recovered down east of the Bahamas, hasn't it?
Yeah, that's pretty much recovered at this point. I mean, there's still a hint of it left, but it's also the portions where it matters near the Gulf Stream. I mean, you're still just pumping warm water out of the southern Bahamas and the Gulf. So it's recovering at a decent rate. And I mean, I think it's a great point that last year we saw what can happen during the second half of the season. We had, I mean, Helene was a great example of not your, prototypical hurricane impacts right at the coast.
Yeah, that wasn't Cape Verde, right? Did that come out of like the Caribbean that just developed on a wave down there?
It was from a wave. It just kind of stayed broad for a while, and then once it hit the waters and had some better conditions, yeah, it really took off. You had a ton of surge, a ton of wind and rain, most notably well inland, and unfortunately that resulted in a lot of fatalities.
That inland rain and flooding was
It was historic. And
yeah.
people have never seen
Yeah,
anything like
that's
that up there.
probably the best. Historic, devastating. I mean, I don't think many people could have expected something like that far inland.
Yeah,
So,
Yeah,
and
unfortunately, that was like the perfect setup. Too. Wasn't there like an upper level low involved, and it kind of
Yeah.
just pulled Helene's moisture and
moisture and
whatever was left, right into, and then you had the orographic lift. It was just like unfortunately the perfect storm. Unfortunately for the flooding, unbelievable flooding there.
yeah, it sounds silly, but like everything really did go right, or I guess wrong in this case. Like you had the pre or the trough in the Ohio Valley, and that just funneled all the moisture from the Gulf up into the mountains, and you know the mountains just helped wring it out, and that's where we had the prolific flooding. So, and we got deeper in the season, we had Milton, and that was deep into about middle October. So, it's getting late for a true Gulf storm. And that was a very odd storm. I mean, I don't know if you guys remember, but that moved from west to east across the Gulf when you typically see east to west. So,
Oh yeah, that's right.
and
yeah.
that was really bad, but it could have been a lot worse too if it was about 25 miles north, right north of Tampa, because that would have just funneled all the surge right into Tampa Bay, and you can only speculate how bad that would have been. But
Right.
Yeah, that was the second one that Tampa got
yeah,
missed on.
that's right.
Was there one year before that too, and it had to blow out tides and stuff? I think.
Yeah, that was
Dolly, I think, was
okay. I was gonna say something with an I. I remember that.
yeah. There's been a couple around the Tampa area, and Florida's just been getting pummeled in general. Starting
Yeah.
with like Ian back in
I was
2022.
just I was just about to say that one. Yeah, that one was really something.
Yeah.
Um,
So, moral of the story is, we got a lot left.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, that's a good segue now to now again we're as of this recording, it's the 25th, which will be Wednesday or Thursday of September. Now, we're heading into the weekend, and there's a lot of noise, on the models and the ensembles and stuff. With basically, it could be in essence three storms that are going to most likely at least develop into something going into the next week or two. So let's talk about that, Steve. So you mentioned 94L, which we think will probably become Umberto.
Yeah, I would think that. So it's a little confusing. 94L is the one right near Puerto Rico right now. 93L is about 650 miles east of Puerto Rico. That's probably going to become Umberto first, as it gradually takes a track west-northwest
Right
into the open Atlantic. Maybe it tries to threaten Bermuda, but overall, thankfully, that looks like a non-issue for the continental United States at this time. But the more interesting item, I guess we'll say, is 94L, like we said, right near Puerto Rico. Right now, it's very disorganized. There's about 35 knots of shear, which is very, very unfavorable for development. Just rips thunderstorms apart, gets dry air into the system, really just makes it a lot more difficult to consolidate. What it's also going to do is likely track over the tall mountainous terrain of Hispaniola, Haiti, and the Dominican Republic. Yeah, so that'll help kind of tear the storm apart, make any organization very, very, very slow. By about Friday or so is when we'd look for it to be in the southern Bahamas. Once it's in the southern Bahamas, yes, the water is warm, conditions start to get favorable, but there's still a little bit of shear. There's still a little bit of dry air around.
Yeah, and what state is it going to be in
exactly,
at that point?
Like, it's going to take a while for it to have some kind of circulation or even a strong enough circulation to really take advantage of those deep, warm waters in the Bahamas. So I would lean towards that this eventually develops, but there's a very complex interaction that may or may not happen based on how strong it gets.
Oh no, not that buzzword.
Yeah,
on
you can say
media.
the word. Yeah, you could say the word.
The Fujiwara effect. Yeah, it's been a hot word. It's like polar vortex in the winter. This is the tropics
really is.
Polar vortex.
So explain that to us, Steve, for our listeners, the Fujiwara effect.
Yeah, typically you only see that happen in the Western Pacific with large typhoons. Basically, it's just very, very dumbed down. It's when the two circulations of typhoons or tropical cyclones interact with each other. Usually, you see the Western tropical cyclone become the stronger one, and the Eastern one orbits around it, and gradually the stronger one would start to induce a lot of shear and dry air and slowly absorb it with time. In this setup, it's very backwards since 93L, again, the one to the east of the islands right now, far east of the islands, that will likely become a stronger storm, at least in the medium range over the next 5 days, than 94 near Puerto Rico. And what that could allow is, as we'll call it future Humberto right now, as that gradually tracks off to the north and west, it may actually kind of tug 94L off to the east as it tries to get around the circulation. So it's a very, very complex situation. But at the same time, if 94L doesn't really develop, it could just get kind of sucked into the main circulation of Umberto itself. There's a ton of moving parts going on. There's also an upper level low over the southeast. So I don't think anyone can really say with any kind of confidence whatsoever what's going to happen this weekend. I would just say from the east coast of Florida all the way up into the Outer Banks, just, keep an eye on things and have a way to get updates. Don't take what you see on social media verbatim. Ignore those hype posts of the dual hurricanes hitting land and all that stuff, and just get information from your trusted sources.
Yeah, of course. And you and I were talking about this a couple days ago when we first kind of got an idea of what may be happening, and we kind of both agree that this doesn't look like it would be, even if somebody got up to hurricane status, it's probably more of a flooding threat, or that's probably the bigger issue, right? With any of this?
Yeah, I even if it does get towards land, there's a really good amount of dry air coming in from the northwest. There's a large area of high pressure that's going to put all that dry air really, really close to the system if it does get near the coast. So eventually that could theoretically get wrapped in, bring down the winds, make it more of a kind of localized heavy rain threat.
Right. Convergence in there somewhere is going to be probably insane.
Exactly. You're going to get moisture funneling into an upper level low. I mean, really depends on the exact setup, but yeah, it's more of a floody kind of situation. But it's something to keep an eye on.
Right.
It's definitely going to get busier, that's for sure. And it's, like you said, we were talking about how quiet it was for like 3-4 weeks almost, and then between Aaron and now, and here we are now. We're going to ramp up to maybe 3 named systems,
Yeah,
in the
simultaneously.
Atlantic.
There's quite a bit of whiplash there from nothing to.
Yeah, like that. Yeah.
Well, that's why it's so important to not let your guard down.
Exactly.
Because, we're still very well into the hurricane season. We have another good month, little over that left. And, I think people forget that even though, well, maybe not in places like Florida or whatnot, but, up here in the Northeast and the Mid-Atlantic, even though we're at the time of the year where we're starting to see those cooler nights, the air is starting to get, cooler in general. We're getting more to a fall pattern. Those conditions are still pretty prime for tropical activity because your water, gets warmer as the season goes. That's why, like, early in the summer, going to the beach and trying to go into the water in June along the Jersey
Cold.
Shore
Yeah, there's a
or
lag.
on Long Island is like horrible. But if you go in actually the water now, they're dealing more with, is the air temperature warm enough, but the water is plenty warm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, look at Sandy, for example. I mean, that was what,
Yep.
late October up here. I mean, I wasn't.
Yeah.
I was down southeast at that point, but I remember, that was just obviously a very odd track and everything. But I mean, it can happen all the way through, late October, even up here. Irene was another one, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Irene was another one. I can go on and on about the late season hurricanes. And I mean, when you have a better shot for interacting with non-tropical systems too. So, and that can, as we just spoke about, the upper level lows and the pre's, whatever, that can, make impacts a lot worse than just your typical remnants. So,
Yeah. What I'm most interested in with this whole next week or so is I want to see what the interaction is regarding, even if there's no Fujiwara. I think there's going to be, they're competing for like this almost the same space, all this tropical activity. I mean, what wins out? I mean, does the upper level low really get involved? I mean, does it, like you said, does it one storm, eat up the other storm or vice versa? It's just going to be very interesting, even from a meteorologist standpoint, is to see how all this, works out. I mean, it's just,
yeah, I mean, the weather nerd in me thinks like it would be really cool to see that kind of interaction offshore. And I mean, there's a chance, but obviously there's still a lot of time. But yeah, I mean, that's incredibly rare for the Atlantic because it's very strange to have 2 systems that are developing in very close proximity in a part of the basin where there really isn't that much land for the eastern one or the western one if it does stay off the southeastern coast. So
right.
would be interesting, but hopefully we can just, take out the land out of the equation here.
Right.
All right, we're going to put you on the spot here, Steve, and maybe this is more of a Kyle Leahy question too, or a Kevin Winters question, but
I think I know where this is headed.
I don't know how much research you've done. I haven't really looked at much, but so is there any correlation between a quieter tropical season, which who knows, maybe doesn't end up quieter, maybe ends up where we were headed and what we originally forecast, just with the quiet break. But is there any correlation between this and winter and an active winter pattern?
So I can't speak to any kind of direct correlation, but this is something Kyle and I actually spoke about probably in like April. We like to go over years that are similar, analogs. compare, how they played out and whatever. Some years that we really liked were quieter years, and some of those years were not really great. But a year that's kind of behaved very similarly to this year, probably up until about a week ago, was 2013. Not just with hurricane activity, but just how the overall synoptic setups behaved. You had a lot of fronts dipping down into the Atlantic, creating a lot of shear up towards the higher latitudes, and that's really what we've seen. I do wonder if we're going to get a colder start to the winter because of that, at least in the northern half of the United States. I can't speak on anything beyond that, but I mean, as long as it keeps going the way it's going, I would feel a little bit more confident that maybe we can see something like the winter of 2013, 2014. That wasn't a crazy year for, your blockbuster snowstorms. There wasn't that much blocking, but it was a very active storm track. It was colder than normal when it needed to be, and you got a lot of kind of what we call overrunning events where you had decent amount of moisture coming into a nice cold air mass, and it was a good year. I think it was a good year from the southeast all the way up into New England. I think it was that might have been 14, 15. That was their historic season, but it was a pretty great season snowfall wise. So if you like snow, that would be something to look into, but it's still the fourth week of September, so we got a lot of time to go. But yeah, I mean, maybe, talk about it with Kyle too and see what he thinks.
Definitely.
Yeah, we'll have that podcast coming up here probably sometime in late October, early November. But
because it'll be here before we know it.
Yeah, I know. I've actually seen other analogs, for 2013, 2014, not comparable to the hurricane season, or not using that as, but also as just pattern wise. And I've seen a few other just kind of hints of that, mainly on social media, but it's just something that they've been using. Some actual people I follow on X and stuff that are decent. They're not like, look at this run, oh my god. But yeah, I've seen 2013, 2014 out there as well with and was it now I was down in the southeast again. I think the year after that was when I moved back up here. I thought I read somewhere that even that year it was active and, like you said, pretty snowy and decent. Wasn't there like a positive NAO that year, to get a little technical?
Yeah, there was.
Technically, you don't need a negative. I mean, you want the negative NAO for cold and blocking, but I guess sometimes you can get away with a positive NAO, right?
Yeah, it had we're gonna get into some jargon here, but like it had a positive PNA and a kind of a positive NAO too. So you're really, when you have that kind of setup, you're just dumping cold air from the Arctic right into the United States, and you really have kind of like an active jet stream set up overhead. And as long as you can keep doing that and get some moisture involved from, the Pacific, the Gulf, the Atlantic, you have a shot, or several shots, to get some larger winter events. They're going to be moving at a decent clip, and it's very hard to get them to wrap up into big blockbuster nor'easters, like it would be if you had blocking. But if you do nickel and dime yourself for several weeks, you can wind up near normal or perhaps even above average. So just because, you have a couple of duds in there doesn't mean that, all hope is lost or whatever for the winter.
Yeah, and like I said, we'll get into that with Kyle and Kevin next couple of weeks.
There's always plenty of winter to talk about for sure. So.
Yep.
Well, along as last year, last year we had the cold for a change here in the Northeast, but there was a lot of suppression too. It was too much.
Very dry.
I'm waiting
very
for
dry, a lot of snow showers.
Yeah, I'm waiting for, on Long Island at least, we have not had just one of those big storms in a couple of years. And I'm a person, like, I like my one big storm and then that's it. I know it's a lot to ask for, but I would like that versus all the, little mini events that are just annoying and heavy. We had a lot of like heavier snow. Yeah. So
mixing, everything. It would be like 2016 or 2015, 2016 would be nice. get one massive blizzard for everybody. Everybody gets their snow, and that's it.
Well, was that I remember the story Jen told. Was that the one you got stuck on the school bus, Jen?
No, that was the winter after Sandy. So that was
2013,
2013.
yeah, that was a
Yeah,
good
that
one.
was a rough year for
That shut the LIE down. That was crazy.
Yeah, that was cars getting stuck on the LIE. Yeah, that was
the one they decided to send you home right when it started to snow or something.
Yeah, because I went to Catholic school, so my school was on the South Shore and I'm from the North Shore. And for those who, don't know, there's a subtle elevation difference between the North and the South Shore of Long Island. And a lot of times that North Shore, north of the LIE, will flip to snow first before the South, sometimes several hours before.
Yeah.
And whenever there's that like hotspot of the highest snow amounts on the island, it's usually where I live. So anyway, they let us go at normal time and we were on the bus. And then as soon as the bus driver crossed the LIE, it was just dumping snow. And it took, what'd I say last time? Like 8 hours, six
Something
to eight
like that,
hours or something to get home. And
that's crazy.
yeah, my dad and our neighbor like pushed the mini bus like kind of out. It kind of got stuck at the end of my driveway. Yeah, it was crazy. It was crazy. Yeah, that was quite the year with Sandy. Then that like kind of little nor'easter that happened a couple of days after Sandy.
That's right. Other parts of the Northeast got dumped on. Yeah, from Sandy,
we even got snow here.
That was Halloween snow, wasn't it? Was that like Halloween snow or something?
It was like early November, I think. I remember we still had a ton of trees and ton of leaves down, and there was like snow on top of it. It was nuts.
Yeah, for Long Island, like it was another big coastal, like all these people just got smacked from Sandy, and now the coastal flooding just, reared its ugly head again. And then that following winter was a little crazy too. So I remember that year very very vividly.
Yeah.
I'm not the best with being like, oh yeah, on this date this year this event happened, but that year is memorable.
So. What podcast was that we talked about that? Was that memorable snowstorms maybe? Or
maybe it was memorable snowstorm. Yes, it was, because that's when I discussed the LIE being shut down.
Yeah.
And there was just cars stranded for miles.
A lot of our Long Island clients still talk about that when I bring up they haven't seen, a storm in X amount of years. Like that's their benchmark. So that goes to show how crazy that was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What year was it that Boston had snow piles till June or something? Was that 2014, 15?
Yeah, it was 14, 15. Yeah.
Yeah.
I forget how much snow they got.
They had so much snow. Yeah, they couldn't.
Because triple digits.
Yeah.
Which is nuts.
Yeah. You know what? You know what's gonna happen? We're due for one of those. That's gonna probably happen this winter because it's been so. We've been. Everyone's like, we need snow. It's been kind of quiet last couple of years. And then watch, it's gonna get socked this year with like. Tons of snow up and down the I-95
corridor. I don't even mind
corridor.
Forecasting those, because
if
it's just an all snow event, and once you're in it, all of our our clients, they're working. What's happening is usually what's expected, or what we expected.
It's the changeover events that are annoying.
I was just going to say, it's those mixing events or those sharp cutoffs are very difficult. Yeah.
No, that's the most frustrating part. Yeah, it's been a long time since we just were able to forecast. All right, we're gonna get 4 to 8 inches of snow. It's gonna start at midnight. It's gonna end at 8 a.m. And then it just doesn't happen like that anymore.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. It's been a while, but
yeah.
But we'll talk about that more. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it, as we say.
Yeah. We'll have Kyle on in the next month or so. But anything else there, Steve, that you want to add?
Not really. I mean, probably looking out decently active back half. I would say through about third, fourth week of October, and then really gets hard for things to keep going into November, and your activity is really limited to like the Western Caribbean. But yeah, I'd say now through about end of October, keep your eyes out and stay tuned to your trusted weather sources, and hopefully
trusted
things
being the key word there.
Exactly.
I was just looking at some of the names after Imelda. That we got Jerry, and we got Karen.
Jerry.
That will be a social media just
Tropical storm or Hurricane Karen, that will definitely blow up on social media.
Wants to
we're
speak to
probably
the
going to get to the
manager.
K-storm we'll probably get to the K-storm at some point, but the jokes with that thing are going to be just through the roof. It's just, but then you got Lorenzo, Melissa, Nestor, Olga, Pablo. So we'll see how far we get. But
Our office is gonna like Jerry. We're gonna have a lot of jokes about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
No, you're right.
We're a big
lot of
Seinfeld
fans.
crowd. Yeah.
Seinfeld.
Jen's our new Seinfeld.
The newest member, yes.
the
I
Seinfeld
watched
group.
I watched it on Netflix. I was like, I gotta understand this lingo.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I can't quote it as well as I can Friends, but I'm starting to pick up. Friends I can work into almost every conversation.
That's
I've
what I can
seen-
do with Seinfeld. Yeah.
Yes. Because I've just seen the episode so many times and just but Seinfeld, I'm getting there. But yeah.
Yeah.
If we had a storm named Jerry, that would definitely
I'm
make
sure
an
there'll
impact
be-
for the office.
There'll be some Seinfeld, comments.
Yeah.
Not only with
definitely.
us, but probably on social media. I'm
Oh,
sure.
100%. 100%.
But all right. Well, again, that about wraps it up for today's episode. Thanks to Jen, of course, and Steve, and also our awesome producer Mike Priante today behind the scenes. But he's always doing a great job, and he'll get this podcast out here. And other than that, again, even though we're focused on the tropics today, we're only about a month away from our winter outlook. So be sure to subscribe to the Weather Lounge, and you'll get notified when that podcast drops, as well as any of our other podcasts. So follow us on all the big social media platforms, and of course, visit us at weatherworksinc.com. And thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.
That's a wrap on this week's episode of the Weather Lounge podcast. Thanks for listening. Be sure to follow us on all your favorite podcasting platforms so you don't miss out on future episodes. Have questions or comments? Just email us at weatherlounge@weatherworksinc.com. We'd love to hear your feedback. You can also learn more about our parent company, WeatherWorks, by visiting weatherworksinc.com and checking them out on social media as well. Thanks again for joining us, and until next time, stay curious and stay weather-wise.